Hi guys. By the way, it's so cool to see the class, right? So great to see you guys. I hope you're being safe, but I'm sure you're so happy to be together. This is the closest I've been to anybody since this all happened. I'm in my house out. Interior design is in New York City, but I'm outside at my weekend house, which I've been at for almost a year now, doing a lot of programming like this one. But I'm so happy to be with you all. And by the way, these girls, so Ellie and Madison, they went right to the top. Like I didn't realize this is the first one, but they're like, let's go for the best and see what happens. And they got the best. I'm not putting myself in that, although kind of, but so I want to introduce my friends, and we're going to have a great time sharing stories and really giving you advice that I hope will help you in your careers. So, okay. So my dear friends, Meyer Davis, I have to start with them. So Gray, who was late. And so that's Gray, and that's Will, the like cool one. And yeah, that's Will. And so I think you guys, it's 25 years in business, right? Is it this year that's 25 years?
We're 22 this year. So
22.
We'll be having a big party at 25, and
okay.
And you'll be invited. We'll invite everybody here.
Yeah. Okay.
A big Zoom party.
There we go. I had to start with them, you guys, because they're both alums of Auburn. So woohoo, round of applause for Auburn.
War Eagle.
Yeah. Yeah, so fantastic. And they work, they do residential and hospitality, work with all the top tier design brands like Four Seasons and Rosewood and Lowe's, One Hotel, W Meridian. I could go on and on and on. And they have amazing relationships also with a lot of chefs in the business too, because they do a lot of restaurant work and restaurants attached to hotels. So that's interesting as well. And by the way, they're so cool, but you couldn't find nicer partners. So I love them so much. So I'm so glad you guys are here today. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Cindy. We love you too.
Yeah. And then everyone's different, which is so nice. So then Deborah Forrest, like all hail to Deborah Forrest, woman president of ForrestPerkins, award-winning. She's a pioneer in the industry. ForrestPerkins is one of the giants in hospitality. That's a big deal. We're going to hear about what it's like to be a woman making it up the ladder, which is fantastic. She does a lot of landmark and restoration projects and also works with the big guns as well. And she's been honored all over and published all over. And Deborah, we're so happy that you could join us today.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Yay. Hey, Deborah. And then we have, this is what makes it also super interesting. Aliya Khan is Vice President of Design for Marriott International. So we're going to get the viewpoint from the client side, which is also, you got to know about that. And it'll help give you a little bit of a perspective of what it's like as designers designing for these big hotel companies, and then having somebody like Aliya say, no, that's not going to work for our brand. And why? She's got all the power, you guys, okay? So 20 years of experience. And she, right now, her focus is on the kind of younger, cool brands like the AC Hotel, Aloft, Element, and Moxie. And she drives the brand strategy for these brands. So it's going to be really interesting to talk to her. Before that, she was with Starwood. So you guys probably know them as well. So hi, guys. How's everybody?
Great.
Great.
Fantastic.
Great. Okay. Do I need more energy? More energy.
Hey.
All right. So we're going to show images, but I'd like to kick it off first with each of you telling us how you got started. So don't talk about specific projects we're going to show later, but let's talk Will and Gray. The thing that's so interesting to me is when you find a great partnership. By the way, you guys, it's very hard to do that. And when you find good partners that end up having a firm together, like that is like a very precious thing. I'm always attracted to the partners because collaboration is what it's all about. So Will and Gray, why don't you give us like the Cliff Notes version of how you guys got together?
The Cliff Notes version is that one of our professors from Auburn, actually, we went to the architecture school there, but David Brawley, he used to teach there, who taught both me and Gray. When he would come to New York, he would always get us together to go have dinner and go hang out and probably drink way too much, and told us that we should get together and form our own firm. And while Gray and I were sort of friends and friendly, we didn't know each other that well, but David sort of brought us together, and having, knowing both of us, he just thought we would make a good team. And he was right.
And at the time, you were both, just so everyone knows, that you were working for two other firms, right? So were you working for those firms when then you got they were both working for kind of very cool firms, right?
Will was working for Charlie Gwaltney for Gwaltney Siegel, and I was working with Aero Studios with Thomas O'Brien and Bill Sofield.
Right. So big cool firms. So then you finally met. Like, that's not that easy to be like, oh, I like you, let's start a firm together.
It just kind of clicked. I mean, we had lots of mutual friends, and Gray was a class or two or three or four ahead of me. But we had mutual friends, and we started helping each other out with our little kind of side projects here and there, and we just got along really well. And we get it sounds kind of cheesy, but it's this situation where sort of 1 + 1 = 3 with us, and we complement each other, and we get along, and it makes a good team. And the other important part about that is that I think we observe our own chemistry, that we have the way we get along with each other and help each other design. And we try to assemble a really great team in our office of people that get along and have the same sort of dedication to great design, and that we do. So, and that we've been lucky to have a lot of people that on our team that reflect that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, also for you students out there, like chemistry is like probably the number one thing. The other is to really know what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, because you kind of need a partner who fills in the other thing that you're not, or you overlap in like such a seamless way. So like Gray, like what is Will really bad at that you're so good at?
I better not get into that.
No, I'm kidding. But
Will is great. What I will say, Will is great at, coming up with, he does these beautiful sketches in sort of really quick perspective that are incredibly informative. And, we'll be sitting around when we're in our office, we have these big conference tables, and we'll usually sit out there and sketch, and different ones will come in. But, Will will just quickly do these beautiful perspectives that really kind of captures the spirit of what the project wants to be. And the one thing that always frustrates Will is tosomehow these sketches tend to disappear, and he's like, where are those sketches? Get those sketches back out so that we can reference them. But very informative, and I think that's one of his really strong points.
And Will, what about Gray?
Gray is one among many things, but he's one of the best Gray can draw a plan like nobody's business. It's amazing. You can give him the most complicated, just crazy floor plan with chases and columns and things all over the place, and ask him to fit in the most impossible program. And in 10 minutes, Gray will have the most beautifully drawn plan that you've ever seen. It's incredible. It never ceases to amaze me. So, but beyond that, he's just got, that's just the beginning of the list. So
right. This is only a 1 hour show. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I remember when I was visiting students at SCAD, there was somebody, this student who was showing me her drawings, and she was asking me whether that was an advantage, or should I even show it in my portfolio? And I was like, oh my God, yes. So like, that's the thing, you guys, like, you're all talented in a certain way. And it's really, really important to harness that, because you never know when you're going out to get a job what somebody is looking for. They just may be looking for that thing that it's so natural for you to do that, but you don't think you're supposed to show that off. So in any case, okay. So let's get Deborah. Tell us how on earth did you start your own firm that's just become, one of the giants in the field?
Well, some of it was serendipity. I had worked with another firm and I got an opportunity to design a hotel in Natchez, Mississippi. And after having worked for 6 years for someone else, and I just jumped at it. It was a fluke. It was one of those things where it was kind of a family connection. And it was my uncle by marriage that bought this old hotel and was going to restore it in Natchez. It had been defunct for years and years. And I went to him and I said, Uncle Norman, there's not going to be anybody else who can have your best interest at heart. I know I've never designed a hotel, but if you'll just give me a chance, I promise I'll do you proud. And sure enough, he gave me the chance. And just by total luck, the great Charles Moore was part of the team for that project. And not because of my work, but because of Charles and the other people who were on that team, including my future partner, Stephen Perkins, who was a young architect at the time. We were published in Architectural Record, and that just sort of launched my career, basically. So.
Wow. And the thing about again, I keep looking at the students because to be so young and everything ahead of you. Yeah. Like Deborah is like so lovely and more mild mannered, you would think, than somebody who could carry something. Like, you're so elegant and lovely. Like, you're like, how do you do, so it just goes to show you, that we all find our inner strength, right? I mean, you have to be very, very strong to run a firm, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially when payroll comes around every 2 weeks.
Right. No, but so in awe that you stayed at the top for so many years.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it. It's been a wonderful career.
Yeah. Fantastic. Aliya, Aliya's different, and I want to make sure in a really good way. Aliya, I want you to kind of tell us your journey, but I also want them to really kind of understand what you do as this brand leader.
And that's important that you're bringing that up, Cindy, because all of you out there, you're going to deal with basically
Aliya. Yeah.
But what's great is she's one of the cooler ones to deal with.
Yeah.
She makes it really fun and enjoyable.
Right. So they may not understand what this is first. So so go ahead, give us a little background, and then we'll kind of lay it out there.
So I'm going to go in reverse order, and I want to speak a little bit to some of this. What I do for my brands is really kind of set a vision or a dream, but I can't do it alone. So, 9.5 times out of 10, it's with partners like Deborah or with Will and Gray, where you say, okay, I'm designing this type of a hotel in this part of the world for this type of audience. Who's going to be the best interior designer that can help me finagle this? And so, on the one hand, yes, I get to dream and I get to pull together this sort of big picture of what I want to do, but you guys know how it is, right? If you dream something and you can't actually actualize it, then all it's ever going to be is a dream. So that's where the partnerships and, the ability to work with people like Will Gray and Deborah comes in. Cindy, you said something earlier about Will and Gray and being able to listen and balance each other. For me, I love working with partners where I can have a conversation. And I know that, some days they're going to show me stuff I love and we're going to say immediately, this is amazing, let's build this. And then there are going to be days where we'll go back and forth and we'll debate and we'll always come out with something we love at the end. But we love it because we've all worked on it together to make it just a little bit better. And I think that is my favorite part of my job, working with so many different talented designers, established firms, young designers who are right out of the door, and everybody in between. And building these hotels or building these dreams everywhere. So, you know, am I the person who has the fun job of doing beautiful floor plans with all the chases and all that other stuff that we prefer not to see? Not really, but I am the person who kind of gets to sit down and say, okay, this is the type of restaurant we're doing. This is the type of audience who comes here. This is the story about this location that we really want to tell. And can we use your vision, your design handwriting to help tell this story? So it's a lot of partnership, it's a lot of collaboration, and it is truly the best part of my job, I think.
Yeah, so, you know, for everyone out there, you may be surprised. I mean, you may know this, or you may be completely surprised that, like, at a Marriott, at a Starwood, there is a person like Aliya who really is, you know, calling the shots. And you know, as a designer, like Will and Gray, like tell me your experience with Aliya. Like, there must be times where you bring things to the table, like you're designing something that you're really, really excited about. And she said, that's not exactly our brand.
And
Like,
that's exactly right. And I think I would call like Aliya like a master editor and sort of visionaire, because she knows what will be a creative sort of push in the right direction to make something become real. And you know, and Deborah, I'm sure you can attest to this too, is that it takes that push to bring out greatness. Like, you don't see great work come from great firms without a great leader like Aliya to sort of, you know, challenge us. It's a challenge, you know, to create, I would say.
And I think it's like, it's the conversations, right? Because we all feed off each other. You guys probably do it in studio, right? When you're all together, you're drawing something and you show something to your friend and say, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think? How do I make it better? Or everybody has different skills or different outlook, that things that you may not even thought of. And then, you know, Deborah will say something and you're like, oh my God, didn't even think of that. That makes so much sense. So it really is that beautiful way for all these voices to come together to shape something in a way that is unique and memorable and distinct.
right. And so, like, by the way, I was saying Aliya, is it Aliya?
It's Aliya.
Aliya.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Will, for that. So with these four, like, you have Deborah, like maybe one day you want to be a single practitioner, like own your own firm, with small or big. I mean, the guys too, or like have their own firm. She's got a huge firm. They have like a very, like, kind of, I don't know, what would you call it? Is it medium, or what size would you call it?
Our firm?
Yeah.
I would say medium. I mean, we're like
medium.
65, 70, 75 people or so.
Right. Yeah. And
I started out with three people.
Amazing.
You know, so you're as you progress, things grow. Hopefully.
There you go. But in terms of Aliya, sorry.
Say whatever comes first.
I'm sorry. It may be that you really want to be like in a brand environment, like, and all those things are interesting and different and good, and, you know, part of your growth as a student, and then when you get out and start working, is sort of developing your talent. And it's just nice to get the perspective of these kind of three different, they're all like different viewpoints. I want to so my amazing assistant Amy, she's so much more than that, she's going to start pulling up some projects. Let's start with Boqueria. One thing that happens a lot as an editor, always looking for great talent, and many times you see the seed of great talent. You see it in a small project, in a little gem of a project, because that's how you publish somebody for the first time, is usually when they're young. It's a small project. And Will and Gray, I think we published a gem of yours first, also small, right?
It was tiny little tapas restaurant, and in the 20s.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, but did we do the gym?
You did the gym, which
Yeah, right.
was one of our early projects
Right.
that we did at Union Square.
Yeah,
And
I remember there was some orange in it or something.
that's right. That's
lots
right.
of orange. Yes.
Yeah.
We
How
use
many
it
years
so
ago
much there that we haven't used it since.
How many years ago was that?
That
That
was
been
probably 20 years ago, maybe.
15.
There you go. See, as a designer, as an editor, you
We were, I have to say, these were the first projects we ever had published, ever. And
right.
we thought we were just beside ourselves that this little gym and this little tapas restaurant that Cindy wanted to
She
publish
took a
them.
chance with us.
Yeah.
We couldn't believe it. But it also, it gave us a real sense of confidence and a sense of accomplishment that we caught Cindy's eye. It meant a lot to us. And thank you, Cindy. It just
Oh, of course. Of course. Amy, you can go to yeah. So
it launched a lot of great ideas and gave us kind of a good start.
Yeah, this was a precious little project. Also with a very cool chef, right?
Yes, it was Seamus Mullen, the
Seamus.
chef, and I don't know if you ever watch the cooking shows, but he's always on like Iron Chef and
Yeah.
and all these shows, and he's really charismatic, interesting guy, amazing food, and so he was fun to work with on this. And the challenge was, we wanted to be cool. We wanted to be, all the seating needed to be high so that you're at the eye level of fellow, customers and the waiters. So there are a lot of little challenges there. And it also needed to feel like you're sort of being transported to Barcelona or Madrid.
Right.
So we kind of had that, but had to make it cool for New York. So there are a lot of little challenges there, but it was just a fun little project.
Right.
Yeah. And but by the way, I think but this is so many years ago now. I brought my editors, like my editorial staff, and we met him. So like it was really nice. We had lunch, we did the tapas thing. It was fantastic. Yeah, so but this was pretty, this is many years ago now, guys. This like tapas idea in New York was like kind of new, right?
That was one of the first restaurants. And
right.
A lot of times when you're doing these restaurants, you don't have a big budget. So we were trying to be really super creative at the same time. And, like Will was saying earlier, we did kind of this little trip. We did a trip to Barcelona just to kind of, for a weekend, just to kind of peruse all the little markets and restaurants and tapas bars. And one of the things that we noticed is very social. And so we thought, well, why don't we bring all the seating up to bar height?
Yeah.
So when your waiter comes, you're all at eye level. And that's kind of carried through all the restaurants that we've done with them.
Yeah. No, it's great. Aliya, you were telling me that you kind of remember this place too, right?
I do. When I first met Will and Gray, this had just opened. It was 19th and Flatiron. And I remember it was this little petite place. And what I also love about it is having been to this one and seeing the evolution of Boqueria. And now I live in Washington, D.C. And I see how even though, Meyer Davis hasn't designed some of these more recent ones, the DNA of what you did, the higher stools always being elevated. So you look at the waiter in the eye. I love that you kind of set this tone for this brand that has pulled through so many years later. And that's a lot of what I do. So it always makes me happy when other people are able to do that so successfully.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay, so we're gonna do a pivot. Deborah, you're gonna tell us about the first. You said it was sort of happenstance that you got this big project. Now, how many years ago was this?
Well, so the one that I was just speaking about was the Eola Hotel in Natchez, Mississippi. But then several years later, when I actually launched Deborah Lloyd Forrest Associates, excuse me, I knew that I wanted to focus on historic hotels. And so I wrote letters to all the owners that I could find that had historic hotels. And most of those at that time that you could identify were in Canada. and they were owned by Canadian Pacific Hotel Company and the big railway company. And so I wrote to the president of the company, and oddly enough, he invited me to fly to Toronto and meet him, and found out later he had just gotten that job. He had been in another aspect of Canadian Pacific. So he had set the first 6 months of his tenure to talk to everybody he possibly could in every part of the hotel business. So I didn't know that, but of course I was flattered that he asked me up. Anyway, long story short, they were just launching a huge program of restoring all of their landmark hotels over several years. And he said, I'll put you on the list to be interviewed for the first one, which is the Empress. And sure enough, I got the project. And
Wait, when was that? When was that?
That was in 1986, 87.
Wow.
And so we closed the hotel down, we completely restored it. And this is a photograph of the lobby, the tea lobby, which is very famous. They serve, in the summertime, they serve up to 600 high tea, 600 places a day for high tea. And that's huge, right? The lobby seats 100. It's large.
Wow.
And it was built in 1907. And almost everything you see in this photograph, I personally designed, including all the little tables, all the things, and they all either move up or down, or they have trays that pull out in order to serve the tea. And then, so anyway, it was a great.
But you also have this, there's a big message there for the students, which is like, you kind of never know. Like, we all think about things the way we can imagine, but you never know what's going on with somebody else. So like, writing these cold calls, like she's trying to get her, foot in the door. And would you know, she's talking to somebody who's brand new in the job, and that opens the door. So, keep trying to open doors, and you never know.
Absolutely.
Right, that's amazing. And then the next one was the Jefferson, right?
And the next one, right? The next one, and there were a number of years that happened in between that. But this is the Jefferson in Washington D.C. And this was really one of the major projects, including the Willard, that we did when we started ForrestPerkins, which was a partnership with Stephen Perkins, who's no longer in the firm. But we were both the architect of record and the interior designer for this restoration. And it's been very successsul. Everything about it is about Thomas Jefferson, including this hand-painted French mural about Monticello, and including, so we restored a lot of the original light fixtures, which you can see the chandelier here, but a lot of it's also new and restored. And then we even designed, I designed the fabrics, which includes this toile that you see on this pillow, which is a combination, you'll see a picture of it in a minute, a combination of drawings from Thomas Jefferson's home, as well as the University of Virginia and a number of his other buildings. And so Cravat produced that for us, and we used it in the hotel.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So that's one, historic preservation, which is happening more and more, or restoration of old buildings, or right. there's a lot of, like, in terms of sustainability these days.
It's very, very green.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. And then sometimes you get to work on a brand for the first time, which Will and Gray, you worked on the One Hotel. So tell us the definition of what that was meant to be. Ames, you can start looking for those images. Yeah, there we go.
This, I remember we flew down to walk the property, and it was an existing property that's over 1 million square feet. And it was just horrible inside and out. And
this is Miami, correct? In Miami.
Yes, this is in Miami, right on the beach, in South Beach.
Yes.
And it's a massive building. And Will and I talked about, what do we even do here? And but after talking with Barry Sternlick, who is a real force within the hospitality industry and creating these really incredible brands. Spent some time with him and his team, and really wanted to create something that was truly special and unique. And this was the first hotel, first one hotel to open, that they had been working on. I think he'd been working on this idea for about 7 years. And so we wanted it to be about sustainability, but recycling this old building, completely reimagining the whole interiors, working with local craftsmen and materials from the area, but creating this place that we wanted to kind of drill down to what the essence is of when you're at the beach. And so really creating this really serene, kind of peaceful environment that you just feel like you can exhale once you arrive.
Yeah, it was a brand that wanted to celebrate sustainability and not make it just a LEED certified building. It needed to make sustainability cool. And when Kemper hires he was the brand sort of a creative manager, he brought us a piece of driftwood and a piece of concrete or something and said, let's make a building out of this. Yeah. And that was kind of fun to come up with a totally new idea. So that was the kind of the genius behind it, was sort of that vision.
And guys, remember that time period too. So for the students now, like you all are very interested in sustainability. The world is all interested in sustainability. This was a huge risk. Like, how do you make kind of something cool, luxury, and sustainable? That was a big brand message. Aliya, do you remember that? Wasn't that?
I do. Actually, I knew that hotel before it became a one, and that's a conversation in and of itself. Like, how do you take something that needed so much love, and by the time Will and Gray were done with it, you would never believe it was where they started and where they took it. But I think the second thing that is important is this was pivotal in changing the tone around hotels, right?
Yeah.
Way back in the day, hotels were of a specific type of formality and decor. And then, we moved the needle a little bit, and you saw brands from Ian Schrager, or you saw W Hotels. This is that next step. How do you make cool, modern, beautiful, luxurious design by being, and still be responsible, still be sustainable, still think about mindfulness? So this was a huge game changer in the industry. And now you see lots of people, it's a compliment to always be copied, right? Because now everyone wants to do what Will and Gray did so many years ago.
Right.
Yeah. Amy, can you go to, okay. Yeah. And again, that thank you for that, because that was so true. But also just this idea of like sustainability, luxury, cool. Like it was, it was like, really, you're going to do that? And now it's the way it is, so you're lucky when you're in on the ground floor of something where you can be a game changer, and they were, and it was really, really special. Tell them about the back wall, because you know what the next image is going to be, you guys. So the back wall is kind of cool.
The back wall is a shear wall to the building, and originally we wanted to open it up, and so we thought, well, why not do a huge graphic on it? And so this is this laser cut with moss in there, and it's obviously an image of a swimmer, and it's this real element in the lobby. And when you're up close, you don't realize what it is until you kind of step away from it.
And then it, I kind of loved it. So it was on the cover.
It was so cool that it made the cover. So that's the moral to that story.
Yeah, there you go. Do something different, and you never know, right? Yeah. Exactly. Aliya, let's talk about a couple of let's talk about Moxie. So like new brands and what it's like working on these kind of young new brands. We also like publishing those kind of brands. I think Amy will pull up a couple.
Oh, yes, our
Okay. Yeah. Let's start with this one.
So the fun thing about Moxie was really, you know, or remains, in a world where you have hotels that are a little bit more traditional from a design perspective, our objective here was, how do we target a different audience? And based on that, create a different sort of design typology. So our sort of target psychographic, if you will, is, you know, the millennial, someone who is in school, fresh out of school. You have access to these small, well-designed rooms, you know, a place to shower, a place to sleep. But then you have access to this big sort of hopping, buzzing lobby. And the idea is that, you know, if you make the room super comfortable and you make the lobby very animated, people will spend time in the lobby. You know, they'll sit there and work during the day, and then just as easily at night, they may have a cocktail or wait for their friends to show up and hang out in this sort of very informal space. So it's been fun also because, you know, we're all guilty of this. As interior designers, you think of design in a certain way, this idea of finished materials and more perfect objects, if you will. And Moxie is all about the grit, you know, it's about the chipboard and the exposed concrete. And, you know, we don't have finished ceilings. We paint the ceilings black. And, you know,
Wait,
really
go back, Amy, go back. Go to the other Moxie. Go to the other Moxie.
Focus on the playfulness of it, right? So this is a good shot because our rooms are so small that we don't even have a real sort of traditional closet. We have this peg wall, and you come in and you have hangers, you can hang your shirt, you can hang your bag on it if you want. We don't have room to store an ironing board. That's how small the room is. But, you know, sometimes people need to iron their clothes. So what we ended up doing was doing these ironing rooms at the end of every floor. So you can still iron your shirt, you can steam, you can do whatever you need to. It's just not in your guest room. And then, of course, it was like, well, I'm not going to put a sign that says ironing room. Like, how lame is that? So we decided to have a little fun with it. And, you know, art always makes things better. So we did a custom photo shoot and found this gentleman who obligingly became our artwork for the ironing room.
It makes it look like a place where you go to meet people.
Yeah.
It's been known to happen. You know, so yeah, it's all about the playfulness, right? That's the one brand where you can really do it.
Wait, do you have another, did you send us another Moxie? Amy, if there's another Moxie, can you pull that up?
You should have two. You should have one from Hamburg, which has the carpet.
Yeah. Those are great. Hang on, she's looking for it. There we go. Yeah.
There you go. Here's another one. I mean, you know, this was basically an industrial space, and they went in and polished the concrete and had all these carpets, and they're like, well, what if we sort of turn it on its head, literally? And, you know, instead of acoustical panels and a finished ceiling, they used it to kind of create this lower social zone. So, you know, the technical components of acoustics are solved, but it was done with a little bit of a playful point of view. I always tell designers that are working on this, don't do what you do for every other brand. If you're doing what you do for every other brand, I want you to stop and think about the complete opposite, because we're going to find a way to make the complete opposite work for this one.
Yeah, you turned it on its head, that's for sure.
For sure.
So, okay, so that's so you saw like a brand, so with the boys, you saw like the one hotel, a brand new idea, Moxie too, but in a completely different way for a different audience. And then when you're really fortunate, you get to work for like one of the biggest, which is the Four Seasons. And Amy, if you can find that. Deborah, how long have you been working with the Four Seasons?
Well, on and off over the last probably 10, 15 years. Yeah, this one was completed about, I think, 8 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago. So this is the one of the main suites of the Four Seasons in Washington, D.C. And it's an interesting building because it's actually made up of 3 buildings, the first of which was built to be a Holiday Inn, and then it became a Four Seasons. So if you can imagine,
Wow.
the bones of a building that was made to be a Holiday Inn becoming the most luxurious hotel in its own city, that's that's a feat in of itself.
Wow.
But it also, another part of it was an office building that was in the same complex. So it's a kind of amalgam of a lot of things. And in order to install the rooms and suites, all of the case goods that we had to bring in, because we completely redid all the living spaces, the only way to get the furniture into the main building was to come through the kitchen and through this very circuitous route to get up into the building, one of the buildings. So imagine that we had to design all the furniture so that it could be taken apart, so that it could be wheeled through the operating kitchen. It was crazy.
That's insane. That's insane.
There are all these surprises that come up when you're designing a hotel, and when you're dealing with, you think you've designed this wonderful, big, huge piece of furniture. Well, guess what? That headboard had to be in 3 pieces because it couldn't fit through the kitchen and into the elevator. So those are the kinds of things that it's a puzzle. You know, we think we're designing these beautiful things, but what we're really doing is solving problems and solving puzzles.
Right, exactly.
And small, right, guys? It's
Exactly.
just
Very true.
yeah. So so that was a fun project as well.
Wow, wow. And I think Amy, pull up assemblage. I pulled a few images, Will and Gray, of a different kind of concept. I wanted to just trying to show the students all these different concepts, and of course co-working, which we're trying to figure out what that's going to look like in the future. Although it's very interesting, every single hotel these days is saving space for co-working, aren't they, Aliya? Right?
Not so, very much so. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so this was kind of another big project, Will, right? That it also had a hotel piece to it, right?
Yeah, it started combining, social club, co-work space,
Right.
and hotel, and even with the sort of casual common spaces where work interaction could take place, you could also sort of work in your hotel rooms. And basically, one of the assignments there was to make a hotel room where it's not weird to have lots of people in your hotel room working.
Right.
And, very much sort of purpose, wellness, spiritually driven. When you come in there's a bowl at the entry reception desk where it's a purpose, bowl. You sort of think about what you want to do and you make your little purpose and you enter. Again, very sort of millennial driven workspace. Instead of a bar, we have like a tea bar, and doing things like that. Lots of interesting found art that the ownership had, and just really working things in that kind of instead of little conference rooms, just little pillows on the floor. So it's just a different way to look at everything, and more casual, spiritual way to work.
Yeah. And so is it, I mean, let's talk about the realities right now. Is it closed right now?
I think they're closed now, but I have to say this is a tribute to the sort of the brand, Rodrigo Nino, whose idea this was, whose brainchild this was. He recently passed away, so I think they're closed. But he's one of the sort of pioneers of crowdsourcing, and this was his idea of bringing that notion of the crowd into a brick and mortar space. And I think he was a genius, and he will be missed. But the legacy lives with his big ideas.
Yeah, hats off to them. Yeah. Aliya, we have a few others. So we have I think we have a couple images of Ace.
AC, yes.
Oh,
Yes, so this is a really cute little jewel box that just opened in Washington, D.C. So why I like to share this is because when you look at this, I should backtrack. So we have what is known as, in the business segment, this idea of select service hotels. And that's a very fancy way of saying these are hotels that are not technically expensive to build and not expensive to stay in. Now, when you think about that, you think, oh, that's going to be horrible. Like, who wants to stay in a hotel that's not expensive to build and not expensive to stay? My job is to make sure that even though they are inexpensive, they still deliver on design. And I love this one. This just opened in DC. And, you know, the reality is, from a rate perspective, if you live in the rate world, you can stay at this hotel for $150 a night. But if you don't know that and you look at this, you think, wow, you know, there's such an attention to detail. There is this sort of legitimate interest in modern design and contemporary curated art. And, you know, this isn't, no offense, your mama's, you know, Holiday Inn. This is really about presenting a stylish stay at a low price point. And, you know, it is done very inexpensively, but very thoughtfully. This one was done, this is another one. This is Little Rock, Arkansas. What I love about this hotel is this was a historic hotel. So, you know, touching a little bit on Deborah's experience of being able to take doing a new build is almost easy in comparison. Taking a historical hotel or a historic building and being respectful of it, and, you know, juxtaposing it with modern design, and then add the layer of not with expense. I thought this was another real beauty that kind of just recently opened, and I'm really excited to see this kind of get, you know, noticed far and wide.
Yeah, like you said, like you can't let them see that it's not what it appears to be. Right. And part of Aliya's job is to do that. And the, you know, the finance and the money side of it is a big piece of hospitality, let's face it, right?
Correct. So, you know, every time Will and Gray would bring like this gorgeous detail of an embroidered strap for W on a beautiful bookshelf that you might use to open a drawer, and I'm like, oh, we don't have money for that. But, you know, it is a little bit of that balance, right? What do you want to do in a way that it's impactful? You want people to remember it. You want them to look at this detail and say, oh my God, this is amazing. Do you remember that bookshelf? But still do it in a way that it doesn't overshadow. This is the Renaissance Hotel in Chelsea and New York. And this was done in partnership with Stonehill Taylor and Indie Walls. And what they did was they wrote this whole story about that particular neighborhood and industrial architecture. And what Indie Walls helped the designers do was curate all of this sort of hardware, some of it found, some of it reproduced. And instead of traditional art, which you might see in some of our more classic brands, they decided to do this whole installation on this wall. So you go up a stair and you're going past all these sort of vintage doorknobs and knockers and keys and all of this kind of stuff, which feels right in a hotel, right? You know, old keys, things like that. So I love that they told a little story of the location, but did it in an interesting way, you know? We have other brands that do oil paintings really beautifully. Renaissance was not the one for that.
Right.
Yeah, and as you're saying, like it's so true. Like you don't have, like Will and Gray, like you might be as a designer be super disappointed, right? That like, oh, but I really want that detail, but she's got to be the one who's like, that's not going to work, but this can, or find something else, right? And in some ways, it helps you be more creative too, don't you think?
It drives the creativity. It makes you search for things that or solutions that make it really notable. I think one thing that I'll say that I'm quite sure that everybody here on the call would agree with is that that pushing for things that and that sort of hard road for design where you're trying to, you know, solve these problems, create the most interesting projects. The ones that are the hardest are the most interesting to people.
I agree. Yeah.
Right. Deborah, do you feel the same way?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing that you don't want, which is like you want total freedom, but you really don't. You want.
No, I really don't.
You don't.
That makes it really so much harder.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly. All right, we're going to move. Aliya, this is like there's one more image here, and then we're going to move on to something else. Who's designing?
This is the Le Méridien, and this was again one of those moments, very old, dodgy hotel. And David Ashen came in and did this conversion. what I also like it is that floor was done by this renowned graphic designer, Paula Scher. She worked for Pentagram, and she took this whole story of Fort Lauderdale and the waterways, and she created this graphic pattern that then influenced the floor and influenced the ceiling treatments. So you actually get to view this from a second floor atrium, and you kind of look down at her graphic abstraction that drove the entire design for a terrazzo floor. It was pretty cool. And to me, it was like, pick that one amazing moment, because no matter what you put on it, that hotel will always sing because of that big, amazing detail.
Yeah, gorgeous. Right. And
Right.
those are the like, and that, well, she comes from a firm that maybe costs more, but it's still like, that's like a big move, right?
Yes, correct.
Right.
When you have the big move, then you can have some quiet moves in other places to offset it, right?
Right. Like, Greg, you guys look for big moves too, like the wall with the guy and. Okay. Okay. I don't think you heard me. I was just saying you guys look for big moves as well.
Definitely. No. It's always, I think it's those things that, it always has a big impact, and you don't want to do a lot of those, you want to do one or two, so it's impactful.
Yeah, exactly. I do want to get to, I know we're starting to run out of time. I do want to show one last idea that this is in my experience, many hospitality designers actually, a lot of them start out residential. You'll see a lot of residential friends, they're dying to get their first hotel. And the reverse happens also, that if you're in hospitality, you might end up getting some residential work, and sort of that crisscross over is really, really interesting. And now more than ever, where all the lines are blurred. Deborah, was this a client through your hotel work, or what was the deal with this?
No, this is actually a cousin of mine.
Oh, cousin of yours.
who bought this beautiful piece of property in South Carolina, and he wanted me to design it. He was afraid to ask me because for a lot of reasons, and so his wife called me up and she said, "Listen, I want to give Jim you for his birthday, but he doesn't want to ask you because he's afraid you won't have time, and the two of us have a really close relationship, and I think we were both afraid that we might damage that relationship if we got into conflict about anything." Well, it turned out to be one of the best projects that I've ever done because we were so close, and we still are. We're doing another residence for them now. But again, this is one of those spaces where almost everything is bespoke. And this was kind of a pièce de résistance. This is the master bathroom.
Yeah.
And
wow, what a window. Oh my God.
Isn't that amazing? So you're looking out on these ancient trees with all of the Spanish moss dripping, and the wall is just high enough that you don't have to worry about the neighbors seeing in. And so it's just a really stunning space.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
So Amy, let's pull the last project up, which is Will. This project was, we published it. It took a while. It was fraught with issues from the client, but this is like one of those absolutely glorious projects, right?
So yeah, this is an amazing project. The client bought 2 townhouses and raised them both, and we built a brand new, even though it looks very historic, limestone mansion. So we researched all the great like New York mansions built in the past century to find what would look like something that was the original mansion on the block. And then inside, we wanted to make it the coolest renovated mansion in the block, even though it was all brand new. So beautiful stonework, beautiful plaster work, amazing reclaimed French floors, but then glass railings and just these beautiful sort of sculptural, artistic kind of light fixtures, and really sublime furnishings. So really super clean, fun, fresh, and kind of a magical feel to
Yeah,
this.
great. How was that project for you guys?
This was a long project. It was again one of these ones where you have to start with a hole in the ground, and build everything from the ground up, and just refining and refining. Look how simple. This is actually a large scale kitchen, but it looks so simple and clean. And
Yeah, Amy, go backwards one so you can see like the view to the dining room. And Gray, what was some of the favorite, like, because there's a lot of artistry in this project.
I would say, what was interesting is like Will had said, kind of that juxtaposition between kind of traditional architecture and modern architecture, and kind of, playing that off of each other. When you came up to the facade, when the door opened, you were kind of expecting this traditional interior, whereas it was very kind of pared down and very clean. Here we had the modern kitchen on one side, and then we go back to this kind of really beautifully scaled kind of panel detailing. You'll see it again in the library, where we spent a lot of time doing this beautiful millwork. So it's that kind of playing off these different, styles that was really lots of fun. And then bringing in great modern furniture, great lighting, art, and having some fun with it. The client was great. She really wanted to kind of push the envelope.
Yeah, so students out there, the thing about this story is that, I won't get into it, but like, of course I really, really wanted to publish it, and for lots of different reasons the client couldn't. And I never forgot about this project. And
you were very persistent, and we were very persistent with our client, and they finally said, "What the heck?" So, and the rest is history.
Right. So. Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes, Angel, I think we can come back to everybody now. Yeah. Sometimes there's, they were so excited to show the project, and then I'm like, I have to have it now. And then the client was like, I don't think so. No, not now. And then we waited around, but we finally got it published, and it's splendid. So that's that like other view, and hospitality right now needs to have that kind of residential feel. So I don't think there's a residential designer I know of who does not want to do a hospitality project.
Right.
Today, right?
It's true.
Right. And
a lot of them knocking on our door.
Exactly. And I always think of the hospitality industry as like the golden children, and now they got hit so badly. But all news is that, as we all have heard, that the minute things get back, like that's the thing everyone's going to be drowning in work, because everyone's going to want to be traveling, right? So everyone's, right. Yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It is. And we certainly want it to be special for you guys too. And to know that hospitality is just an amazing, amazing industry. But, there's a lot of business to hospitality. There's a lot of design and fighting for design, and a lot of business too, because at the end of the day, it has to like have the ka-ching factor, and it has to make sense, which is so wonderful, Aliya, that you were there to give us some perspective on that. Okay, all right. Well, thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Take care.
Aliya. Bye, guys. Bye, everybody. Thank you. Bye.